Hey guys, welcome back to Mastering 3D in Photoshop. My name is Kirk Nelson, and in this lesson we will finish off the 3D planet. In this one, we will work with cross-sections. So at this point we have our rendering of the Earth inside this protective force field shell. And as much as I really love the way this looks, I want that shell to look a little less plasticky and a little more energy force field-y. So my idea was to render out the force field by itself and use it as another layer within our compositing so that we can play with the blending modes and we can add some glows to it and just work our magic within Photoshop. But the problem that we run into is if we go back to our 3D layer and we start turning off things like the base Earth and the clouds and the lights, so we only have our force field, well, we can see the other side of it because it's semi-transparent. We don't want the other side to be rendered out because that's not going to look right. That's on the other side of the planet. We shouldn't be able to see that. So the solution is to use an obscure feature within the 3D tools known as the cross-section. If we go up here to the scene line in the 3D panel, this is where we have the render presets. Now we've discussed this before because we did use the line illustration when we were lining up the letters. There's some other fun ones in here. The sketch versions are particularly interesting, but in this case, what we want to leave that as whatever it was before, and we want to enable the cross-section. And that chops in half this force field layer. A heck of a force field if we can get chopped in half with a checkbox, right? Anyway, we want the slice to be along the x-axis. Notice if you change the axis that it's on, it changes where that force field or where that shell gets chopped. I'm going to change this tilt Y and dial it up and set some offset to it a little bit. Now something to note as you are adjusting these values, keep an eye not only on your main model window, but also the secondary window. Because as you adjust the tilt, you can see how that's being affected there. And if you'd like the other side to be the part that's visible, I think that's the case here because it looks like we're looking at the inside of the shell. You can actually select the sides here between side A and side B. And if you find that it's the opposite side of what you want, you can flip it by using this little icon here that allows you to swap the cross-section sides. So this reverses which sides of the object is being removed by the cross-section. And once we get everything dialed in like that, we hit the render button. And so that's how the final render of the force field looks. I've taken the liberty of rasterizing that rendered layer as well. So now in my main layers here, I've got 3 different renders. I've got the one that we created previously with just the planet. I've got the force field that we just now rendered, and I've got the combination of them together. And here's the result of my compositing of those elements together. Now I will quickly run through and show you exactly how I did this. First of all, here's at the bottom of it the render that we created of the planet and the force field together. And on top of that, I've got the rendered image of just the planet that we created in a previous lesson. And I did use a layer mask on that, see, so that we could sort of see a little bit of the force field render behind it bleeding around the edges. Then I've got the actual force field render on top of that. Now on this, I set the blending mode to linear dodge, so it's a nice bright one, really lightening that up. And I added a color overlay on the layer styles, and that's what gives it that electric blue appearance to it. And then I self-made a glow layer just to give it that otherworldly force field type of glow. And that was honestly done just by creating a selection of the actual planet, filling it with that electric blue, adding a severe Gaussian blur to it, and offsetting it up to where the light is coming from. So it's not completely around the planet, it's mostly up here at the light source. And then adding a layer mask of the planet itself. That's what gives us that halo effect, because if we turn that off, you can see just how circular it really is. And setting the blending mode to linear light. And that does give us a really neat, very sci-fi effect of this blue marble protected by a high-tech sci-fi force field. Now we've created a 3D planet fully in Photoshop. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought it was really a lot of fun, and we ended up with a really cool project out of it. Our last chapter will be started next lesson, and that chapter is called Getting Creative. It's a grab bag of different features that don't really fit into the previous projects before, but they're really worth noting.